You're invisible to women, Ethan. Nobody ever notices you. Those words hit me like a sledgehammer to the gut as I sat across from my wife Tessa at Romano's, the upscale Italian place she insisted we frequent to keep up appearances. The double date with her friend Chloe and Chloe's husband Brad had been going downhill fast, but I never expected Tessa to deliver such a brutal blow in public. I'm Ethan Jameson, 41 years old, and I've spent the last 15 years fixing computers and networks for small businesses around Portland, Maine. Not glamorous, but honest work that pays the bills. My wife Tessa, on the other hand, runs a successful interior design business catering to wealthy clients who throw around money like confetti. Good thing I'm not looking, I replied calmly, taking a sip of my wine. The comment earned a barely suppressed snicker from Chloe, whose perfectly manicured nails drummed against her champagne flute. Tessa's green eyes flashed with irritation. She hated when I didn't rise to her bait, especially in front of her friends. That's exactly what I mean. No passion, no fire, just nothing. Brad shifted uncomfortably in his seat, clearly wishing he was anywhere else. I didn't blame him. This wasn't the first time Tessa had used social gatherings to air our dirty laundry, but it was definitely the most vicious. Maybe we should order dessert, Brad suggested weakly. Oh, I think we're done here, Tessa said, standing abruptly and grabbing her designer purse. Some of us have early meetings tomorrow with clients who actually matter. As we made our way to the exit, the hostess, a pretty brunette in her 20s, smiled warmly at me. Have a wonderful evening, Mr. Jameson. Good luck on your next date. She winked playfully, clearly having overheard the tension at our table. I saw Tessa's jaw drop out of the corner of my eye, and Chloe's face went red, trying not to laugh. Sometimes the universe has a sense of humor. The ride home was silent, except for the soft jazz playing on the radio. Tessa stared out the passenger window, her reflection showing the cold, calculating expression I'd grown to know too well. We lived in a modest colonial in South Portland, nothing fancy but comfortable. Or it had been, before our marriage started rotting from the inside. I'm going to bed, Tessa announced as soon as we walked through the front door. Don't wait up. I poured myself a bourbon and settled into my home office, surrounded by computer monitors and the familiar hum of servers. This was my sanctuary, the place where I actually felt competent and useful. As I scrolled through work emails, my mind kept replaying the evening's events, invisible to women. The phrase echoed in my head like a broken record. Maybe Tessa was right. Maybe I had become boring, predictable, forgettable. But when had she become so cruel? My phone buzzed with a text from Pete, my oldest friend who tended bar at Murphy's downtown. Heard about tonight. Chloe's husband called me. You okay? I typed back. Peachy, just living the dream. Want to grab a beer tomorrow? I might have something to tell you. That got my attention. Pete wasn't one for drama or gossip, so if he had something to say, it was probably important. Sure, after work. I finished my bourbon and headed upstairs, expecting to find Tessa already asleep. Instead, I heard her voice coming from our bedroom, low and intimate. She was on the phone. I know, baby. Last night was incredible, she whispered. I can't wait to see you again soon. My blood turned to ice. I stood frozen in the hallway, listening to my wife of 12 years talk to another man with more passion than she'd shown me in months. He doesn't suspect anything. He's too wrapped up in his little computer world to notice what's happening right under his nose. The conversation continued for another few minutes, filled with the kind of intimate details that made my stomach churn. When I finally heard her hang up, I quietly retreated to the guest room, claiming I had a headache when she called after me. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. The signs had been there for weeks, maybe months. The late nights working, the new clothes, the sudden interest in going to the gym, the way she'd grown distant and critical, picking fights over nothing. But hearing it confirmed was like getting punched in the solar plexus. My wife was having an affair, and she clearly had no respect left for me whatsoever. As dawn broke through the blinds, I made a decision. If Tessa thought I was invisible, if she believed I was just some pathetic nobody who would roll over and take whatever she dished out, she was about to learn how wrong she could be. I got up, showered, and put on my best shirt. I had work to do, and it wasn't the kind that involved fixing computers. The next evening at Murphy's, Pete poured me a beer and leaned across the bar conspiratorially. The place was nearly empty except for a few regulars watching the Red Sox game on the big screen. I wasn't sure if I should tell you this, Pete said, his weathered face serious. But I saw Tessa last week at the Harbor Club with some guy. Real cozy, if you know what I mean. The Harbor Club was an exclusive waterfront restaurant that charged $50 for a steak. Definitely not the kind of place Tessa would go for a business meeting. What did he look like? I asked, though I dreaded the answer. Tall, expensive suit, drove a black Range Rover. They were all over each other in the parking lot. I nodded grimly. It confirmed what I'd suspected after overhearing her phone call. Thanks for telling me, Pete. I know it wasn't easy. What are you going to do? I'm not sure yet, but I'm done being invisible. Over the next few days, I put my technical skills to work. I didn't hack into anything. I'm not a criminal. But I did start paying attention to things I'd previously ignored. Tessa's social media posts, her schedule, the conversations I could overhear when she thought I wasn't listening. It didn't take long to piece together the puzzle. The man she was seeing was Ron Vickers, a successful real estate developer who specialized in luxury condos and commercial properties. Married, 2 kids, drove exactly the kind of flashy car Pete had described. I found his company's website and learned he was hosting an open house event that weekend at a new development downtown. Perfect opportunity for some reconnaissance. But first, I needed more information. I called Lisa, one of Tessa's friends, who'd always been friendly to me, unlike the venomous Chloe. Hey Lisa, it's Ethan. I wanted to ask you something, and I hope you'll be honest with me. There was a long pause. Oh, Ethan, I was wondering when you'd call. So you know. Everyone knows. I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you, but Tessa made us all promise to keep quiet. She said you two were working things out. Working things out by sleeping with Ron Vickers? Lisa sighed. It's been going on for about 2 months. Chloe's been encouraging her, saying she deserves better. I told her she should either work on your marriage or end it honestly, but what? She's been saying some pretty awful things about you, Ethan. About your performance at home, your lack of ambition. I don't think any of it's fair, but she's convinced herself you're the problem. My hands clenched around the phone. Bad enough that she was cheating, but she was also humiliating me to our entire social circle. Thanks for being honest, Lisa. I appreciate it. What are you going to do? I'm going to remind everyone that I'm not as invisible as they think. Saturday afternoon, I drove to Ron's open house event. The development was impressive. Luxury condos starting at $500,000, targeting young professionals and empty nesters with money to burn. Ron was easy to spot, tall and handsome in an artificial way, working the crowd like a politician. I waited until he was talking to a young couple who looked like serious buyers, then approached with a big smile. Ron Vickers, congratulations on screwing my wife. The words carried across the room, and conversation stopped dead. Ron's face went white, then red, then white again. I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about, he stammered. But his guilty expression told a different story. Sure you do. Tessa Jameson, interior designer, red hair, great in bed according to what she tells her friends. Ring any bells? The young couple backed away slowly. Other potential buyers started whispering among themselves. Ron's carefully cultivated professional image was cracking like ice on a pond. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave, Ron said, trying to regain control. Oh, I'm going, but I wanted to thank you personally for taking her off my hands. You two deserve each other. I walked out whistling, leaving behind a room full of shocked faces and one very rattled real estate developer. That evening, Tessa came home in a fury. What the hell did you do today? She screamed, throwing her purse across the kitchen. I went shopping, looked at some real estate, met some interesting people. You humiliated Ron in front of his clients. He could lose those sales. Gee, that would be terrible. Maybe he should have thought about that before he started sleeping with married women. Tessa's face was flushed with anger. You have no right to interfere in my life. Your life? Last I checked, we were still married. But if you want out, just say the word. I'll make it easy for you. For a moment, she looked uncertain. Then her expression hardened again. Maybe I will. Maybe I'm tired of being married to someone who's given up on life. Funny. I was thinking the same thing about you. She stormed upstairs, and I heard her on the phone again, probably consoling her lover. But I wasn't done. This was just the opening shot. Later that night, after Tessa had gone to bed, I drove to Ron's house in Cape Elizabeth. Nice place, probably worth close to $1 million. His black Range Rover sat in the driveway like a monument to his success. I'd come prepared. Plastic wrap, super glue, and a selection of adult toys I'd ordered online for cash. It took me about an hour to completely wrap his car and decorate it with the toys, strategically placed for maximum embarrassment. Then I took photos and posted them anonymously to the neighborhood Facebook group with the caption, "Someone's having more fun than the rest of us." By morning, the post had dozens of comments and shares. Ron's neighbors were having a field day speculating about who might have done such a thing and why. I was having coffee and reading the comments when Tessa came downstairs, already dressed for work. "You look pleased with yourself," she said suspiciously. "Just enjoying the morning news." Apparently, someone in Cape Elizabeth had some car trouble last night. Her phone rang, and I could hear Ron's panicked voice even from across the room. Tessa's face went through several interesting color changes as he described the scene in his driveway. "I have to go," she said, grabbing her keys. "Have a good day at work, honey. Hope Ron gets his car situation sorted out." The look she gave me could have melted steel, but I just smiled and waved as she left. Round one to me. Pete was polishing glasses when I walked into Murphy's that evening, and his grin told me he'd already heard about Ron's car situation. "You didn't," he said, shaking his head. "I have no idea what you're talking about," I replied innocently, ordering my usual beer. "The whole neighborhood's talking about it. Someone posted pictures online before Ron could get it cleaned up. Poor bastard had to call in sick to work." I tried to look sympathetic. "That's terrible. Who would do such a thing?" "Someone with a good sense of humor and access to a novelty shop," Pete laughed. "But you better watch yourself, Ethan. Guys like Ron don't take humiliation well." "I'm not worried about Ron. I'm more concerned about what else my loving wife might be up to." Pete's expression grew serious. "What do you mean?" I pulled out my phone and showed him some screenshots I'd taken from Tessa's social media accounts. Nothing illegal, just publicly posted information that painted an interesting picture. "Look at this. 3 weeks ago, she posted about a business dinner that supposedly ran late. But her friend Marissa posted photos from the same restaurant at the same time, and Tessa's nowhere to be seen. Could be a coincidence. Maybe. But look at this one." I swiped to another screenshot. "Last weekend, she said she was visiting her sister in Boston, but her location services were still on, and she was actually at a hotel here in Portland." Pete whistled low. "She's not even trying to hide it. That's what bothers me. She's gotten so comfortable lying to me that she's getting sloppy. Like she doesn't think I'm smart enough to figure it out." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stay away from my business or you'll regret it. R." I showed Pete the message. "Looks like Ron's feeling chatty. You should be careful, Ethan. This could escalate." "It already has escalated. The question is how far I'm willing to take it." The answer came sooner than I expected. When I got home that night, I found Tessa waiting for me in the living room with a stack of papers. "I've been thinking about what you said," she began, her voice artificially calm. "About making it easy if I wanted out. And I want you to sign these." She slid the papers across the coffee table. "It's a separation agreement. Very generous terms for you, considering." I picked up the documents and scanned them quickly. My technical background had taught me to read contracts carefully, and what I saw made my blood boil. "This gives you the house, the cars, and most of our savings," I said slowly. "In exchange for what, exactly?" "A clean, quiet divorce. No drama, no fighting, no more embarrassing scenes like yesterday. And if I don't sign..." Her mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the cold calculation underneath. "Then things might get complicated. People might start asking questions about your behavior lately. Your mental state." "My mental state?" "You've been acting erratically, Ethan. Paranoid, aggressive. Yesterday's incident with Ron, for instance. That's not normal behavior." I realized what she was doing. She and Ron had cooked up this scheme to paint me as unstable, maybe even dangerous. Get me to sign away my rights to avoid a messy public divorce. "I need time to think about this," I said finally. "Of course, but don't take too long. Opportunities like this don't last forever." After she went upstairs, I photographed every page of the agreement and sent them to my lawyer friend Dave Morrison. His response came back within an hour. "Don't sign anything. This is highway robbery. Call me tomorrow." But I had a more immediate problem. If Tessa and Ron were planning to frame me as unstable, I needed to get ahead of the narrative, and I had just the plan. Next day was Saturday, and according to Tessa's calendar, which she'd carelessly left open on our shared laptop, Ron was hosting another event, this time a yacht party, for potential investors in his latest project. Perfect. I spent the morning shopping for the right outfit. Nothing too fancy, but respectable enough to blend in with the crowd. Then I drove to the marina where Ron kept his boat, a 40-foot cabin cruiser named Second Chance. The irony wasn't lost on me. The party was in full swing when I arrived. About 30 people mingling on deck, champagne flowing, soft jazz playing over the sound system. Ron was holding court near the bow, regaling a group of investors with stories about his latest conquests, both professional and personal, from the sound of it. I grabbed a glass of champagne from a passing server and worked my way through the crowd until I was standing just behind Ron's audience. Now, the trick is knowing what people really want, Ron was saying. Take women, for example. They say they want stability and security, but what they really crave is excitement, passion, a man who knows how to take charge. Several people in the group nodded appreciatively. I recognized a few faces from the society pages, local business leaders, politicians, the kind of people who could make or break Ron's reputation. Of course, I said loudly enough for everyone to hear, it helps when the woman in question is married to someone else. Less commitment that way. Ron spun around, his face going pale when he saw me. What are you doing here? Just enjoying the party. Beautiful boat. I bet it's seen some interesting action lately. The crowd was starting to take notice, conversations dying as people sensed drama brewing. I think you should leave, Ron said, trying to keep his voice level. Actually, I think I should stay. After all, I'm practically family now, aren't I? Since you're sleeping with my wife and all. A collective gasp went up from the crowd. Ron's carefully cultivated image was cracking again, this time in front of the people whose money and respect he needed most. You're obviously disturbed, Ron said, but his voice was shaking. Someone call security. Oh, I'm disturbed, all right. Disturbed that my wife's boyfriend doesn't have better taste in boats. This thing's what, 20 years old? Tessa always said she preferred younger models. Ron's face went red with rage. That's enough. He lunged at me, but I stepped aside at the last second. Ron, off balance and probably a little drunk, stumbled forward and crashed into a server carrying a tray of shrimp cocktail. The tray went flying, covering Ron in cocktail sauce and ice. The crowd erupted in shocked laughter and excited chatter. Several people were filming with their phones. This would be all over social media within hours. As Ron struggled to his feet, dripping with sauce and humiliation, I leaned close and spoke quietly enough that only he could hear. This is just the beginning, Ron. You wanted to play games with my life? Let's see how you like it when the tables are turned. I walked off the boat whistling the same tune I'd been humming since this whole thing started, leaving behind a crowd of delighted gossips and one very angry, very embarrassed real estate developer. The video of Ron's shrimp cocktail incident went viral within 24 hours. Someone had posted it to TikTok with the caption, "When you mess with the wrong husband," and it already had over 50,000 views. I was scrolling through the comments, most of which were surprisingly supportive of my position, when Tessa burst into my office. "You've lost your mind," she screamed, waving her phone at me. "This video is everywhere. Ron's clients are canceling meetings, his wife is asking questions, and everyone's talking about us. Technically, they're talking about Ron. I'm just the guy who served him some karma with a side of cocktail sauce. This isn't funny, Ethan. You're destroying people's lives." Funny. That's exactly what you and Ron were trying to do to me with that separation agreement. Speaking of which, my lawyer had some interesting things to say about those terms. Tessa's expression shifted slightly. What lawyer? Dave Morrison. You remember Dave, don't you? He handled the contract when we bought this house. Very sharp guy. He was particularly interested in the clause about my supposed mental instability. For the first time since this whole mess started, Tessa looked genuinely worried. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. You and Ron cooked up a plan to make me look crazy, so I'd sign away my rights to avoid a public divorce. Problem is, crazy people don't usually hire lawyers and plan elaborate revenge schemes. They just snap randomly. I stood up and walked over to where she was standing. But I'm not snapping, Tessa. I'm thinking very clearly for the first time in years. And what I'm thinking is that you picked the wrong husband to underestimate. She backed toward the door. You're scaring me. Good. Maybe now you'll understand how I felt when I overheard you telling your lover that I was too stupid to notice what was happening under my own nose. Her face went white. You heard that? Every word, including the part where you described our sex life to him in excruciating detail. That was a nice touch, by the way. Really showed your class. Tessa's phone rang, and I could see Ron's name on the screen. She answered it without taking her eyes off me. What? Slow down. I can't understand. What do you mean someone broke into your office? I smiled. You might want to put that on speaker. This sounds interesting. With shaking hands, Tessa activated the speakerphone. Someone got into my office last night. Ron's panicked voice filled the room. They didn't steal anything, but they left messages, printed out emails between us, and taped them all over the walls. And they somehow got into my computer system and changed my screensaver to that damn video from the boat. Well, how is that possible? Tessa asked. I don't know. The security cameras were mysteriously offline between midnight and 3 a.m. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. I had to give myself credit. 20 years of IT work teaches you a lot about security systems and their vulnerabilities. Getting into Ron's office had been surprisingly easy. The building's network security was a joke, and his password was literally Ron Vickers 123. "This has to be Ethan," Tessa said, looking at me accusingly. "What makes you think that?" I asked innocently. "I was home all night. You can check the security footage from our house if you want." Which was true. I'd done all the work remotely, using techniques that were perfectly legal if ethically questionable. Ron's office building offered free Wi-Fi to tenants, and their network administrator was either incompetent or lazy. "Probably both. We should call the police," Ron said through the phone. "And tell them what?" I asked. "That someone printed out your private emails and left them where your employees could see them. That your computer got hacked because you used a password that a 10-year-old could guess. Good luck with that." Ron's voice turned threatening. "This isn't over, Jameson. You're playing with fire." "No, Ron. You were playing with fire when you decided to sleep with my wife. I'm just returning the favor." I hung up the phone and turned back to Tessa. "You know what the funny thing is? I actually used to respect you. I thought we had problems, but I believed we could work them out. Right up until I heard you laughing about what a pathetic loser I was." "Ethan, Save it. We're way past apologies now. You wanted excitement and passion? You're about to get more than you bargained for." That evening, I met Pete at Murphy's to update him on the situation. The bar was busier than usual for a weeknight, and I noticed several people pointing at their phones and laughing. The Ron video was still making the rounds. "You realize you've probably made an enemy for life," Pete said, sliding a beer across the bar. "I've had enemies before. At least this one's out in the open. What's your next move?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Check your email, a friend." Curious, I opened my email app and found a message from an anonymous account with the subject line, "Thought you should know." The message contained a single photo attachment. When I opened it, my blood ran cold. It was a picture of our bedroom, taken from an angle that suggested a hidden camera. In the photo, I was sitting on the bed reading a book, completely unaware I was being watched. "Son of a bitch," I muttered. "What is it?" Pete asked. I showed him the photo. "They've been spying on me, probably hoping to catch me doing something they could use against me in court." "That's illegal, isn't it?" "Extremely. But it also means they're getting desperate." I studied the photo more carefully, trying to figure out where the camera might be hidden. And desperate people make mistakes. I spent the next hour combing through every inch of our bedroom until I found it, a tiny wireless camera hidden inside what looked like a smoke detector. The kind of thing you could buy online for a couple $100. But instead of destroying it, I left it exactly where it was. If Ron and Tessa wanted to spy on me, I was going to give them a show they'd never forget. The final confrontation came on a Thursday night in October, during one of Maine's legendary thunderstorms. I'd been expecting it. The pressure had been building for weeks as my campaign of psychological warfare took its toll on both Tessa and Ron. Ron's business was suffering. The viral video had made him a laughingstock in professional circles, and several major clients had quietly moved their accounts elsewhere. His wife had hired a divorce attorney and was asking uncomfortable questions about his whereabouts and finances. Tessa wasn't doing much better. Word of the affair had spread through her social circle like wildfire, and her carefully cultivated image as a successful businesswoman was crumbling. 3 of her biggest clients had canceled contracts, citing personal reasons that everyone understood perfectly. I was in my office, supposedly working on a client's network security upgrade, when I heard car doors slamming outside. Through the window, I could see Ron's Range Rover and Tessa's BMW parked in my driveway. They'd come together, which was either very brave or very stupid. The doorbell rang, followed immediately by loud pounding. "Open up, Ethan." Ron's voice carried over the thunder. "We need to talk." I activated the live stream app on my phone and propped it up where it would capture the entire living room. If this was going to be the final showdown, I wanted witnesses. When I opened the door, Ron pushed past me without waiting for an invitation, dripping wet from the rain. Tessa followed, her perfect hair plastered to her head and her makeup running. "You've gone too far this time," Ron said, pointing an accusatory finger at me. "My wife filed for divorce today. She's taking half of everything I've worked for because of your little games." "My games?" I laughed. "You're the one who decided to sleep with a married woman. I just made sure everyone knew about it." "You destroyed my business, my reputation." "I didn't destroy anything. I just held up a mirror and showed people who you really are." Nummy, nummy hubun. Tessa stepped forward, her face twisted with rage. You're sick, Ethan. This obsession with revenge is going to land you in jail. For what? Telling the truth? Making your boyfriend's password security public knowledge? Everything I've done has been perfectly legal. Money. What about the camera in our bedroom? She demanded. You think we don't know you've been using it to spy on us? Nummy hubble, miad, money. You mean the camera that you and Ron installed to spy on me? The one you were hoping would catch me cheating so you could use it in divorce court? Nummy court. Their expressions told me I'd guessed correctly. Nummy nendi. Ahos ning gumpoundy worn had zerziob. Did you really think I was stupid enough not to notice a fake smoke detector that wasn't connected to our actual fire alarm system? Nummy. Ron's face was getting redder by the minute. You've cost me everything. My marriage, my business, my reputation. Good. Maybe next time you'll think twice before trying to destroy someone else's life. Nummy numdingkam hoithin, nadingo, dega, nummy haban, yordim, nummy haban, mihi wood, nanda, nummy haban, gudjan, yernan, nadusem, hodosin gim, hamad haban, odingao, mummy, mium gim, punandan, miunandam, inami sami, madusami hamdingam, nad, munda, inami hum, mium jam, munda, munda, nand, minda samhida, miusin gim, nadusami, menda, mium gim, nanda, minda mindum binbament, medam yo, manda, mad, naminto more, mimnam yo, mendum bed. I gestured toward my phone, which was still live streaming everything to my social media accounts. Smile, you're on camera, and so are the 300 people currently watching this conversation. Both Ron and Tessa spun around to look at the phone, their faces going pale as they realized what was happening. That's right, I said cheerfully. And everyone can hear you admitting to installing illegal surveillance equipment in my home. They heard Ron threaten me with physical violence, and they're about to hear you confess to a whole lot more. Nummy, and turn it off, Tessa screamed, lunging for the phone. I intercepted her easily, gently pushing her back. I don't think so. See, the thing about being invisible is that people forget you're watching. They get careless. They say things they shouldn't say, do things they shouldn't do. Like what? Ron demanded. Like planning to forge my signature on property documents. Like trying to liquidate our joint assets before I could stop you. Like scheming to have me declared mentally incompetent so you could steal everything I've worked for. The live stream comments were exploding with shocked reactions and encouragement. Word was spreading fast. I could see the viewer count climbing by the minute. You can't prove any of that, Tessa said, but her voice lacked conviction. Actually, I can. Remember that shared laptop you've been using? The one with the automatic backup to our cloud storage? Every email, every text message, every document you've created or received is sitting right here on my phone. I held up the device, and both of them stared at it like it was a loaded gun. Should I read some of the highlights to our audience? I asked. Like the email where you discuss having me committed to a mental health facility? Or the one where Ron suggests making me disappear permanently? That was a joke, Ron protested. Was it? Because your browser history suggests you've been researching some pretty dark topics lately. Private investigators, offshore accounts, ways to make someone look suicidal. The storm outside was reaching its peak, lightning illuminating the room in stark flashes. But the real storm was just getting started. Here's what's going to happen, I announced, addressing both my unwelcome guests and my online audience. Ron, you're going to walk out that door and never contact my wife again. You're going to withdraw any legal challenges to my divorce proceedings, and you're going to compensate me for the emotional distress you've caused. Like hell I will. Oh, but you will. Because if you don't, I'm going to release every piece of evidence I have about your little conspiracy. Your remaining clients will disappear overnight, your divorce will get a lot more expensive, and you might even face criminal charges for the surveillance equipment. Ron looked like he was about to have a stroke, but he didn't move toward the door. As for you, Tessa, I continued, turning to my wife, you're going to agree to a fair divorce settlement. 50-50 split of assets, no alimony, no false accusations about my mental state. And if I don't, then everyone gets to hear the recording I made of you and Ron planning to have me killed. The room went dead silent except for the thunder outside. Even the live stream comments seemed to pause in shock. That's right, I said, enjoying the looks of terror on their faces. Did you really think I wouldn't bug my own house after I found your camera? Every conversation you've had here for the past month is recorded and backed up in multiple locations. You're bluffing, Tessa whispered. I pulled up an audio file on my phone and hit play. Ron's voice filled the room. Maybe we should just make him disappear. Permanent solution to a permanent problem. And Tessa's response. How would we do that without getting caught? The live stream exploded with comments calling for police intervention. Several viewers were already posting screenshots and sharing the stream to their own accounts. Turn it off, Ron roared, charging toward me with his fists raised. But I was ready for him. As he swung wildly, I stepped aside and let his momentum carry him straight into the coffee table. He went down hard, scattering papers and knocking over a lamp. Assault and battery, witnessed by over 1,000 people, I noted calmly. That should look great in court. Ron struggled to his feet, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. You son of a bitch. Actually, my mother was a saint, unlike some people I could mention. Police sirens were wailing in the distance, getting closer. Someone in the live stream audience had called them. Time to go, Ron, I said, tossing him the keys to his Range Rover. Oh, and you might want to check your car before you drive it. I may have left you a little going-away present. His face went white as he remembered what had happened the last time I'd gotten near his vehicle. What did you do? Nothing permanent. Just a few pounds of very smelly fish hidden in various hard-to-reach places. Should make for an interesting ride home. The police were pounding on my door now. I opened it to find 2 officers standing on my porch, rain streaming off their uniforms. We got reports of a disturbance, the older officer said. Just a friendly chat with my soon-to-be ex-wife and her boyfriend, I replied pleasantly. Though I think they were just leaving. I gestured toward Ron and Tessa, both of whom looked like they'd seen a ghost. Officers, you might want to know that these 2 have been conducting illegal surveillance of my home and making threats against my life. It's all been live-streamed and recorded. The younger officer looked at my phone, which was still broadcasting to an audience that had grown to over 2,000 viewers. Sir, we're going to need you to turn that off and come with us to answer some questions. Of course, but first, let me address my audience. I looked directly into the camera, rain from the open door spattering around me, lightning flashing dramatically in the background. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for witnessing